Oh, hey, what's up, gentlemen and ladies? Sorry, I haven't slept in 4 days. I've been working on finishing up these models for Final Fantasy XIII using the totally real and not made up Chocobo program. And Square Enix has some harsh deadlines, and the fact that Japan doesn't have labor unions doesn't really help out, but hey, at least I get to live out my dream of living in Tokyo and working on the Final Fantasy franchise. Hey, what's this? A company email? We are sorry to inform you guys that the latest version of the Crystal Tools engine will not be compatible with any models created using the Chocobo program. We apologize for any inconveniences this may have caused. Please be excited. Signed, Shinji Hashimoto. Well, I'll just go kill myself. Square Enix has had many issues throughout the years, as any company is bound to have, but one of the most infamous times in the company's history is the time period during the development of the Fabula Nova Crystallis games from around 2007 to 2014 or so, and much of this had to do with the fact that Square decided to dip their toes into the video game engine business. Now let's go back to when this all started. It was actually all the way back at E3 2005, where the team behind Final Fantasy X made a tech demo for Sony's newest system at the time, the PlayStation 3. This demo was running on an original engine that Square had made based on the opening of Final Fantasy VII, which led many fans to think that Square was announcing a remake for the game, but nah, it was just a tech demo. And you guys thought that Square being trolls was a recent thing? This has been going on since 2005. But anyways, this inspired the FF10 team to move their newest game, Final Fantasy XIII, over to the PS3 using this brand new engine that they had made called Crystal Tools. Okay, well, at the time it wasn't called Crystal Tools, it was actually called the White Engine, but you get the point. And Square was really excited about this new engine, so much so that they wanted to go all in. See, a reasonable company would make an engine for a game, if it proved successful, maybe then use it for some of their other games, or add support for multiple consoles, maybe begin selling it to other companies after they prove themselves with the few games under their belt. But come on, this Square Enix we're talking about here, when have they ever not dived full-on headfirst into anything? In the middle of Final Fantasy XIII's development, they went to the team working on the engine and they were like, hey, great work with the engine, really love what you guys are doing, keep up the great work, but we're gonna need you guys to add Xbox 360 support into the engine. I mean, it might take a bit, but okay. Great, and while you're at it, PC too. PC? Are we porting the game to PC too? Well, see, that's the thing. We also kind of wanted to use the engine for other games. Like? Well, Final Fantasy Versus 13 could use it, right? Versus. You mean the action RPG, using the same engine as the linear turn-based RPG? Yeah! Oh, and also we wanted to use it for our online games, that, the successor to Final Fantasy XI that everyone's been talking about. Oh, and you can't forget about Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest? The game that looks like a CGI version of Dragon Ball, using the same engine as Final Fantasy XIII, and online capability for MMOs? Are you fucking kidding me? I feel like there was some... Oh, and the Wii. God! And be sure to have it done fast, because we want to sell it to other companies too. Yeah, moderation is not really in Square's vocabulary. The team working on this engine, we'll just call them the tech team, was spreading themselves too thin. They would be taking in requests from pretty much the entire company, and as we all know, when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. Ironically enough, they lost track of the main game that they even began working on the entire engine to begin with, Final Fantasy XIII. It was being neglected by the tech team. They were still working on the base engine, so they didn't have comprehensive software documentation. The FF13 team didn't know what they could or could not use, so out of frustration, they just started working on the game regardless. And as we all know from those horror stories told by the developers, yes, they would even end up making assets for the game that weren't even compatible with their own engine. You know, the engine that was supposedly initially created just for Final Fantasy XIII. I feel like there's some kind of irony somewhere in there. After this whole ordeal, Kitase himself said that making their own engine for FF13 may have been a mistake, and I feel that may was the wrong word to use there. More like it was a huge mistake. More like it was directly and indirectly the root of most of Square Enix's problems for a good decade. But you might be saying, alright, so, you know, bad engine and team management may have caused problems during 13's development, but how did it almost kill Square Enix? Well, the problems don't stop there. They went much deeper. And what better way to start with this than with possibly the biggest failure that the company has ever seen in its entire history, Final Fantasy XIV. Now, just to be clear here, I am obviously talking about the original version of Final Fantasy XIV, 1.0. The team has since gone back and reworked the game in its re-released version, A Realm Reborn, and I know that many people nowadays play and enjoy Final Fantasy XIV. It's actually one of the best received MMOs in recent history, but the original release was a gigantic mess, to put it lightly. Final Fantasy XIV was an unplayable, glitchy, buggy disaster that should have never gone out for retail, and it didn't take long before Square lowered the subscription fee and eventually just made the game free altogether. People like to joke around and say that 15 was released as a beta. You don't know what you're talking about, okay? Watch some footage from the original 14. And part of this was, of course, due to the fact that the game was running on an engine not properly optimized for PC use and not designed for online games. Even though focus on the Crystal Tools engine shifted to Final Fantasy XIII after the developers realized their mistake, they still insisted on using the engine for Final Fantasy XIV, and while 13 turned out fine because of it, 14 didn't. The plethora of glitches, awkward combat, and borderline unplayable nature of the game at launch can all essentially be blamed on a poor engine, and some bad management as well. Let's not completely take that out of the equation. The inclusion of Yoshida onto the team basically saved Square Enix from a massive loss with this game, and even he has said in interviews that the fundamental problem with Final Fantasy XIV was the very technology used, which rendered the very foundations of the game broken. Another mistake like Final Fantasy XIV would, in Yoshida's own words, destroy Square Enix. Thankfully, A Realm Reborn proved to be a success, and later Final Fantasy XV did great in terms of sales and was relatively well received by most players, but that doesn't mean that it didn't have a shaky development as well. That's right, FF13 almost ruined this game too, Square Enix's most successful game since... God no, we just went over that. Most people only bought that for the demo. Those still get a lot of hate from time to time. Didn't really sell Final Fantasy numbers, if you know what I mean. Nice try, but no. Oh sheesh, does anybody even remember that? 10? Okay, 10. Square Enix's most successful game since Final Fantasy X. What the hell, Crystal Tools? See, since 13's development was halted because of the engine, to make up for lost time, Square decided that it would be a good idea to put more people on the 13 team, which makes sense in theory, until you realize the fact that the people they took all belonged to Nomura's team. You know, the Versus team, the Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 team. Get them working on Final Fantasy XIII. And poor Nomura was forced to work on other games, which, I mean, hey, worked out for the Kingdom Hearts fanbase, but Versus was no more for quite a few years. And in case you guys are wondering, Nomura's team never really returned. Versus wouldn't continue development until it was taken over by a completely different team, Tabata's, under a brand new engine. You guys thought Crystal Tools was the only engine that screwed up Square Enix? Let me introduce you guys to the shiny Luminous Studio. That's right, instead of simply admitting that they shouldn't have tried to make an engine for all of those games because it sure as hell wasn't working with 15, Square just said, it wasn't good enough, so we need to make another engine specifically for Final Fantasy XV. Unreal 4? Unity? What the hell do you think we are? Efficient? We only use our own engines. Now, while admittedly Luminous did not cause as many issues to the entire company as Crystal Tools did, you still see Square repeating many of the same mistakes, you know, trying to spread themselves too thin and making this new engine compatible with all next-gen consoles, PS4, Xbox One, PC. They wanted support for DirectX 11 and then also DirectX 12, and just like Crystal Tools was for last gen, they wanted this engine to be what they worked on for all their current gen games. That included what Nomura was working on after he got kicked out of 15, little game you might have heard of called Kingdom Hearts 3. Einstein once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I guess history really does repeat itself because just like last gen, the same thing started to happen. Square was having issues with 15 and implementing it with this new engine, hence why we didn't hear about it for like a year. They focused their attention on making shiny, fancy-looking tech demos to eventually try and sell the engine to other developers, and they were once again having major issues trying to make the engine compatible with multiple games. Kingdom Hearts 3 is pretty much the major example, where getting the game's new Kingdom shader to work with Luminous was proving to be a harder task than they expected. In October of 2014, it was announced that Kingdom Hearts 3 would be switching from the Luminous studio to Unreal 4, a third-party engine. And in August of 2015, Square revealed that they would also not be using the Luminous studio for the Final Fantasy VII Remake or any future titles after 15, as it too would run on Unreal 4. This effectively ended Square Enix's time in the game engine race. These engines all proved to be very expensive to make, very difficult to accommodate for multiple games and multiple game systems, and overall just not really worth the trouble when they could just use third-party engines like Unreal 4. And after these engines cost them millions of dollars and delayed Final Fantasy XIII, 15, and Kingdom Hearts 3, not to mention the catastrophic mess that was Final Fantasy XIV at launch, it seems like Square Enix has finally learned its lesson. Maybe games won't take 6, 8, 10 years to develop anymore. Maybe they'll be able to focus on putting more content instead of making the game look pretty. Maybe the teams will be able to work better together and deliver amazing products overall. Or they could just fuck it up. I mean, this is Square Enix we're talking about here. Hey guys, just wanted to say thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Like always, shout out to Plan and Rock for pledging to my Patreon. If you guys would like to pledge, the link is in the description. It really helps me out. But I guess either way, that's all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to blitz that like button, subscribe as always. Stay tuned, Kupo.